And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Happy lockdown number 5 in Melbourne. I hope you're all doing okay. Staying positive. Welcome to tonight's Live with Yana live stream. So tonight's topic is extremely relevant. So tonight's topic is how to navigate your IT career in times of COVID. Again, just in time for lockdown number 5. So we timed it really well. So thank you so much for finding some time this evening to join our live discussion. Please make sure to introduce yourself in the comments. Let us know what you do and join our conversation with your comments and questions. If you're new to my live streams, I'm Yana Martins, and I've just recently started my journey as IT recruiter. So hence I started this new YouTube channel dedicated to IT career in Australia. So tonight, as I said, we're going to talk about how to navigate your IT career in times of COVID. And Nick is going to share his valuable insights and real life experience when it comes to managing your career path during pandemic, and also how organization can help people's well-being and foster innovation during this time as well. So, the world is changing. There is so many uncertainty around, and I'm sure very few of you have been thinking what's next? What should I do? How I can manage my career during this interesting time? So it's incredibly relevant topic. So please tag or share it with your friends who need to hear this. So before I'll pass it on to Nick to introduce himself, I just want to remind you that we're going live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. To watch the replays, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, IT Career in Australia. I'm going live every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time with various experts from my network. And we're talking about all the things IT career, job search, and specifics of IT industry in Australia. So we're going to we'll try to answer all your questions from all the platforms. So please make sure you ask as many questions, but please stay on the topic as well. And the most active participants will also receive maybe a nice surprise at the end of the stream. So again, please, make sure you introduce yourselves in the comments. It, would be nice to know who's here tonight with us. And I'm passing over to Nick to introduce himself, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Yana. First, allow me to acknowledge that we're meeting on the land of Wurundjeri people, and I'd like to express my respect and gratitude to the custodians of this land and waters. This culture has enriched my life incredibly, and I'm very humbled and very grateful. Also, I'd like to welcome everyone watching us in Woiwurrung language. So, Waminjeka, that means welcome. When it comes to me, it's pretty simple. I'm Nick, and I've been in IT industry for 15 years. I'm currently a cloud architect at Transurban, and I hope I can share some information with people that may be useful in these trying times.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for spending this evening with us. I guess I have a quick question to everyone who's listening us tonight. Have you actually changed your job during a pandemic? Yes, so it's been an interesting year or probably year and a half now. And I'm curious if you actually have to or choose to change your job in the last year and a half. I actually did myself as well about seven weeks ago. And actually, what about you, Nick? Did you change your job during pandemic?
Well, not yet. I'm changing my job next week.
Here we go. So that counts as well. Yeah. So basically, I must say there was a lot of changes during this last 18 months. And I guess my first question to you, Nick, as well. So what happened? What happened in IT industry? During the global pandemic, and what changes can you see?
Well, it's a good question. There are a lot of changes on many fronts, obviously, and it doesn't just affect IT careers. And I think there are two kinds of people in general. People who divide the world into two kinds of people and the ones who don't. And I'm the divider type. And I guess maybe I'll cover a little bit about that. You know, a story about two salesmen who went down to Africa in 1900s, and they were sent down to find if there was any opportunity for selling shoes. And they both wrote telegrams back to Manchester, and one of them wrote, "Situation hopeless, they don't wear shoes." And the other one wrote, "Glorious opportunity, they don't have any shoes yet." And I feel there's a similar situation with IT careers and pandemic in general. And if the last year has taught me anything, it's that we're never going back to the way things were. Also, forget the way things were. And it wasn't normal the way things were. I believe. I think it would be very forward-thinking of us as professionals to take that experience and use it as a catalyst for change. And that change would have been impossible had it not been for this, once in a generation opportunity to take and redefine the way we work and live. Now, I'm a geek, so I try to make my decisions and charter my path based on the data that is available to me. And in this case, I think it's interesting to look at the data that is shared by Gartner about what's going on in the industry. And it looks like a lot of CEOs started to place fresh emphasis on some of the new areas and relinquish others. And I think it's really important. You can see that the workforce gained the most momentum out of all areas, with about 24% of CEOs naming it among their top 3 priorities, which is a 24% increase from the last year. And that is a sign to me that CEOs acknowledge the toll that pandemic took on people and the role and importance that talent plays and will play in meeting their goals. So going back to our two salesmen, I think the mindsets can be different. You can avoid surprise and train so that you're prepared for any eventuality. But that's normally not where innovation happens, because all the thinking has already happened. So you developed some skills, you're prepared for known situations. But the alternative to that is to embrace surprise, where the thinking hasn't happened yet and the thinking is yet to happen. And then when something happens where you're in a situation which is unknown or uncertain, you can now think your way or imagine your way out of this box. And I think it's a magical time, really, that accentuates your creativity. And that, I think, is the value of things that are uncertain. And that is the value of things that happen unexpectedly. And it forces you to be creative. And you may choose to shut down at that point because what you've learned doesn't work anymore in this new world. Or you can embrace what's happening and think, how will you take what you know and how will you take what you want to achieve and adapt?
Yeah, there is definitely a saying, like you don't want good crisis go to waste.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's also obviously depends how you look at the situation. But I guess, like, what does it mean for like IT professionals? How people can react to these changes? Uncertainty is not a pleasant state for a lot of people. Changes, it's not always something that people take that easily, especially if you have a steady routine for a long time. So what would be like your advice for people, how they need to react during these times?
Well, firstly, I think it's a great opportunity to slow down and reassess some things. I mean, it's always been important to check in with your people, with your colleagues, with your friends, and be open to people checking in with you and be honest about how you feel. And now I think during these times, we have to reach out to people. We have to reach out to our friends, and not with a text, not with an email, but preferably with a phone call or a video or something we can hear the tone of the voice, because there's a lot of metadata encoded in our voice. And something that I recommend doing to my friends is just pick a person on LinkedIn that you haven't spoken to in a while or haven't spoken since pandemic started, and send them a LinkedIn voice message, because LinkedIn has this relatively new feature where you can actually press the microphone and record a voice message for a person. And you'll be surprised at responses that you get when you try that. So if you want to take a challenge, a small step out of your comfort zone, maybe, then try that and see how that changes. And I think another really important aspect there is differentiating between skills and attributes. Because what we need now more than ever is not new skills. I mean, skills have always been important in IT, and that remains to be the case. But paying attention to attributes such as patience and resilience and adaptability, which are qualitative. You can't really measure them. But I think Rich Divine in his book says beautifully that skills direct your behavior for a known situation. So here's how to ride a bike or how to drive a car, for instance. But when you get into unknown and uncertain situations, your skills don't apply, and you have to lean on your attributes. And when people try to build high-performing teams, for example, they aren't just good when things are going great. Okay, the truest, highest high-performing teams are usually great when things go south and sideways. And to get that outcome, what you need is really good attributes and not just skill sets. That's what builds trust usually in a team, because trust is more than just a feeling. You can't make anybody trust you, for example, right? All you can do is behave in a way that allows them to make that decision to trust you. And I think, and that's something that my great mentor, Denis Pozobon, has taught me very recently. And I'm really grateful to him for that.
Yeah, definitely. Trust build over time. And, expecting someone to trust you just when they just met you is something impossible. And it's incredible how little things can build trust. It's just like, I don't know, remembering our friend's parents' name or something can actually have these like little things that building this trust like over time. But, you mentioned about resilience and, and the attributes that's also important, than people also looking for a job. But how we can actually, when we're looking for a job, how we can show our, future employees that we're resilient, how we can build this resilience, and how we can actually show it to our potential employees as well.
Yeah, well, be wise, I guess. And that's not easy, right? Wisdom is not gained by studying or, by reading things. Usually, I think the way you gain wisdom is through pain and through a lot of regret and through failing, which I have a lot of that in my life. Maybe more than anything else, I have failed. And I think we're in a generation, or we are a generation, which is really afraid of failing. And we have to figure out a way to become better at failure. And that begins by being open about your own failures. As an exercise, what I have done and what I recommend to anyone to get more comfortable with that is emailing somebody you admire and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm failing constantly. And I want to have a call with you or a catch up with you and talk about your failures in that catch up. And they will tell you about theirs. And what you learn in that process is that the version of people that you admire is not the version that they started out as. And that gives you assurance and hope that you can do the same thing. So when thinking about your next career move, maybe don't do the business school analysis where you have, columns of options with ideas, with competition and market and salary, because that doesn't work. I mean, I've done that. I went to a mentor of mine and asked him, like, here are my ideas. What do you think? Which stand out to you? And he looks at the list and he looks at me and he goes, which of these ideas actually make you come alive? And I looked at the ideas and realized that none of them made me come alive. And he actually was inspired to ask that question by Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King, when he was stepping into a leadership role, I have a great GIF of Martin Luther King, which I prepared for that. He went to his mentor, and people keep forgetting how young he was. He was in his 20s when he started, and he went to his mentor, who was Howard Thurman, and he was trying to figure out what steps he should take. And Thurman said, "Don't ask what the world needs, and ask what makes you come alive." That was his question, because what the world really needs is more people that have come alive. And I think that is a great quote, and I know that you like quotes, Yana. So I repeat again: don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because the world needs more people that have come alive. And the problem is we keep ourselves hidden, and we keep ourselves covered in a cotton wool, and then that reduces the likelihood of those opportunities to be exposed to something that can set us on the path of purpose. And if you'd like to know what happens at the end of the journey when you haven't found your purpose, boy, do I have a book recommendation for you. This one, highly recommended. And we can do this mirror thing with Babbitt, because this is an amazing book, which about a person who has never done a thing in his life that he wanted to do. So I'm not gonna talk more about it. Just go and read it if you're interested.
Yeah, we'll put it. We'll put the link in the comments.
Yeah. So there's another version actually of that I see where which is similar but not exactly the same problem, where you're trying to make an impact and you trying to go from job to job to job and go, I'm not making an impact. And the newsflash is that you're probably not going to do anything by yourself, because you're missing the point. You have the word I in your problem statement, because what you should be doing is joining a team and making an impact. Because when you're part of something that makes an impact, it's not only more accurate, it's more attainable. Because the world we live in is about ecosystems. It's no longer a world where you have one hero that goes out and gets things done. Because creativity and innovation, it's a team sport.
And interesting that you actually mentioned about the impact, because I think like recently I saw this interview with Simon Sinek, and he was actually talking about the young generation who, getting the first job, going into the job, and then, 9 months later, they're like, I'm quitting because I'm not making any impact. It's also about the patient. So, as much as we want to make an impact, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think it's great to think of, obviously, that we can bring some sort of impact to organization, but also it's also about the patient as well. So it takes time to get closer to be able to make this impact as well. And we're talking about like resilience and impact. We have a few questions from the audience as well. So we've been looking at the IT career from the candidate's perspective, but Chichana also asking, how does organization help in its place through the COVID-19? So have you seen what's happening with organizations, how they actually helping with people's well-being and encouraging people to stay sane during this time?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of organizations think about it and do it really well. And then there are organizations that are lagging in that department, obviously. And I think a lot of it comes down to being a safety net for your people, because in the past, your family would be a safety net. But with pandemic and with distributed work, which is a huge part of it, I think organizations need to look at how do they enable their people with their unique challenges. Like you have parents who have to do homeschooling. You have people who live completely alone, but are not speaking up about what worries them. And organizations need to listen to their people and need to build mechanisms, because intentions are great, but intentions don't work unless you build mechanisms around those intentions. And something that we've been working on at Transurban is a project that is about that, about using technology to help people, not to give them new tasks, but to actually use AI as basically turn AI into IA, which is intelligent assistant. Okay, because even leaving pandemic side, there's this great graph by Astra Teller, who's a pioneer in connected and autonomous car technology, where I should actually have that somewhere. Here it is. So you have these two lines on the graph, and one of them is human adaptability to change, which is pretty slow. And there's a good reason for that, because our brains run on Windows 10,000C. They're not adapting as quickly as technology is changing. And then you have the red line, which is the rate at which technology is changing. And we are here. The technology has surpassed our ability to adapt to it. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to build systems that will help you catch up with the rate of change and basically bring that blue line up to where technology is. And the way to do it, and the difference really between machines and humans, the main difference between machines and humans was expressed beautifully by Dov Seidman. And he goes, when you hit the pause button on a machine, it stops. But when you press the pause button on human beings, they start. Because you start to reassess your assumptions. You go get a shower and suddenly great idea pops into your head because you're not actively thinking about work. You have pressed pause on your thinking brain. And that's where ideas pop up. And allowing people to press pause more frequently is something that organizations can and should be doing, because that's how you create space for people to connect and see each other and get better ideas. I think that's a really important aspect of how organizations can foster and build mechanisms for that.
Great quote, Nick, and definitely it is definitely something about this, pausing and actually being in the moment, because sometimes this action of being hamster on the wheel and just keep going and thinking if you just keep going, you will do more. But in reality, if you keep going like this, your productivity just going down. And I think there is definitely in some organization, there is no realization that if you keep just spinning the wheel with your employees, it's not gonna actually increase productivity. And, on the simple side, I also want to say it's always nice when your manager just giving you a call and ask how you're going.
Yeah.
Without actually giving the task or anything, or just just a quick 5 minutes casual chat about how the school homeschooling going, are you coping okay? I think that also this human touch is also always important, especially depends on the people's situation.
Absolutely. I think the greatest model for how organizations should behave is the Kingdom of Bhutan, because, and you probably know because it's a pretty popular and well-known fact, but what they measure in Kingdom of Bhutan as their success metric, alongside GDP and all the other usual economic metrics, is gross national happiness. And so I was reading about the research team that was collecting the data about that project of measuring gross national happiness for decades. And the question they were asked was, is there a single question that you can ask that can give you a pretty good sense of somebody's happiness? Like, how do you quantify happiness, right? And they said, yeah, as a matter of fact, there is a question. And the question is, if you were in real trouble, who could you call and know with 100% certainty that a person would be there for you? And usually people that have an answer to the question are much more likely to be happy. But then there was a twist to the question, and the twist was, whose list are you on? So who can call you and know with 100% certainty that you're going to be for them, or you're going to be there for them? And if you have an answer to that, then you actually have an even higher likelihood of being happy. So in other words, it's not a line, it's not a pyramid structure, it's a circle, it's a community. And it's this idea of a circle that we continue to come back over and over and over again, because seeing your colleagues, seeing your team, seeing your people leaders and people who report to you for who they are, for humans and not resources, as we tend to refer to them a lot, unfortunately. And the language does matter. Language is very important, especially in sensitive times such as pandemic.
And I guess, this reciprocity is also one of the ways how you can manage your career, because I'm sure a lot of people notice when, then you grow your network and you build this trust. That's probably the easiest way actually navigate your career during any time, not even during the pandemic, because if you have these people that you can call and that who's there for you, and again, like some people call and you're there for them, you help someone, you introduce someone to someone, they introduce you. And again, and I believe it's probably one of the best ways to finding these new opportunities, because when someone recommends you, you're usually already a good cultural fit in a way, because they know this person, probably your attitude or your personality is matching this organization already, because they know you better than someone who just reading your resume.
Yeah, I tend to think about cultural fit as a bit of a misnomer, to be honest, because cultural fit means, we have this square hole and we need you, a square peg, to fit into it, right? But innovation is probably not going to be fostered by looking for cultural fit. Innovation is about cultural contribution. You're looking for people who can bring some new ideas. You're looking for diversity. And usually what I see when I see people going towards cultural fit, I tend to go, we just want more of the same thing, as opposed to we want something that is going to give us a new angle on the problem that we're solving. And I think looking for cultural contribution, it's cultural fit for breakfast in my book, because that's really where I see innovation going through the roof, when you have a lot of diversity in cultures, in ideas, in the ways of thinking.
Look, I guess it's like a whole different topic about, the actual cultural fit and, who's the best for the team and so on. So we can probably talk about it forever, but let's come back to navigating our IT career during times of COVID. And guys, please, if you have any question to Nick, make sure to pop it in the comments. You can comment on LinkedIn or YouTube. And we'll try to answer your question. Julio is saying, I agree with Nick. In my field, the pandemic has allowed the biological IT industry to move forward and try new methods and ideas with some promising results. Yeah, so definitely some industries growing quicker in pandemic than others. And I'm sure, we're not talking about, hospitality industry today, that's for sure. No comments on that. But yeah, so I guess there is definitely more opportunities in the way in IT field during this time. And look, Nick, I guess we talk about, we talk about the resilience, we talk about how organization can help people with their well-being as well. So, but what's kind of, practical advice you can give to our audience to, to navigate their career during these times?
Look, well, firstly, I think you touched on hospitality industry, and I think the situation is very complicated there. But I grew up reading Noam Chomsky, and he wrote a lot about optimism and the value of optimism and hope. And I have a great gif of Noam here. And something that really stuck with me from him is, if you assume that there is no hope, you guarantee that there will be no hope. And if you assume that there is an instinct for freedom, that there are opportunities to change things, then there is a possibility that you can contribute to making a better world. And what that means to me really is that optimism is a strategy. You can use optimism as a strategy for making a better future, no matter how bad things seem now. Because if you don't believe that the future can be better, it's unlikely that you will participate in making it better. So if you assume that there is no hope, you guarantee that there will be no hope. And another one about hope, which is really important in these times, is Rebecca Solnit's book, Hope in the Dark, which is about politics and about societies. But what she says is that hope is not a lottery ticket, which you can sit on the sofa and clutch, feeling lucky. It's not a passive thing. It is an axe you break down doors with in an emergency. And hope should show you out the door, because it will take everything you have to steer the future away from war, annihilation of the earth's treasures, and the grinding down of the poor and marginal. To hope is to give yourself to the future. And the commitment to the future is what makes the present inhabitable. It makes the present inhabitable because you can plan a better future. And it's not about passively waiting for the world to change around you. It's a battery that drives the engine for a positive change. It's not a passive and it's not a naive thing, I think. So you can use optimism as a strategy. And there are some people that interpret IT as irritable technicians. But I'd like to think that we as IT people have a huge part in designing the future. And design is hope made visible. So we can choose the future rather than reacting against the one that we don't like. And it's like running towards that, supposed to running away. Now, for practical things, yes.
Yeah, that I just want to say. So, what sort of obviously we wanna stay positive. We wanna look for the brighter future. We wanna think about our next career opportunity and so on. But but then you stay at home. It's rain outside. You wake up in the morning, all you want to do is just stay in your pajamas and maybe read the book, or maybe just look at the Netflix, and that's all you want to do. And you're trying to stay optimistic, but it's just not happening.
Yeah, definitely. And look, we are creatures of habit. So whatever habit is easy, and whatever habit is our nervous system, which is wired for comfort, is going to nudge us towards, that's the habit we're going to create. It usually takes 30 days of repetition, roughly, to form a habit. And adding more bandwidth to our lives seems daunting, especially if you have a good thing going, like, I don't know, you found a great series on Netflix or something. But I think there's always space for growth. And for me, because I'm also a musician, music habits is a perfect example of our lives. because we have our go-to playlist on Spotify or wherever, and you live by that playlist, and then something new comes on, and because living by no rules our life, we change the song 7 seconds in, and we keep changing and skipping until something familiar comes on, because no one listens to cassette tapes anymore. And it's so easy to skip, right? And my general rule is switching things up so you don't get locked into the same routine. And a small place to practice expanding your bandwidth is introducing undiscovered music into your system. And the idea may seem exhausting, but it's a great exercise. So my recommendation is to search for a music guru in your life and look at their playlists or ask them about their playlists, and take an hour a week to just sift and absorb. Not the 10-second, test and skip process, but just be in an open mode, be in a yes mode. And once you master these, then you can apply the same theory to other areas. You can take up doodling for 30 minutes, try a new restaurant, watch a documentary on a subject you never knew, get lost in your 5-kilometer zone. There's an app for that. You can get lost and see your suburb from a completely new perspective with this thing. It's just beautiful. It's called Derive. Because it's got to be a yes for you, to make it over the hump after pandemic. Because if not, you're stuck. And once you're stuck, that's it. So if you want baby steps, that's music. At least for me, it works.
And I guess everyone can use their hobbies, in a way. So if you like music, so introducing new music. So someone may be like exercising, but like maybe trying different exercise. If you've been doing running all the time or cycling, maybe try to do yoga. Or that's one of the strategies. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think another one is. Another thing that really helps is being really kind to yourself, because we're not kind to ourselves a lot of times, and we talk to ourselves, and there are voices in our heads that keep telling us terrible things about ourselves, and I think that comes from the stories, and that's the reason I wanted to ask a question about the context of what people would tell themselves to their younger selves. I don't know if we have any answers to that, but
we haven't asked it yet.
We haven't even asked it. So here it goes. I thought you would put it in comments or something. So this is a question, and I think it's an important question, because it gives you can't give yourself advice without the context. And that is why we have stories. And the stories that we tell ourselves can embolden us, but most of the time they can also keep us trapped, because the internal logic of these stories really shape our adult experiences. And the idea there is that those stories help us make sense of our reality and connect us to others, or experience our memory and understand our past. Because you have stories about love, you have stories about heartbreak, about your memories. And when we're born, first thing we do is listen to people who tell us stories. And then those stories find us. And we can get lost in those stories. So the question we should be asking is not whether those stories are true or whether they matter, because they may be true and they do matter. But the real question you should be asking is, how does the story that you're telling yourself, how does it serve you?
So guys, whoever is listening to us, I guess I just put the question on the screen. So would be great if you can share it with us. So if you can, at least just put the letter in the comments. So what piece of advice would you give your 18 years old self? Yeah. So it's not over when you think it's over. Things will change. Be more careful, be more carefree, go for it. You don't have to do it all. So now, then you're looking through to, you're looking at your life, looking your experience. What piece of advice would you give yourself? So please choose one of these options, or maybe put your own advice. We would love to see your answers.
I have a question
Nick,
for you.
what's your answer? Actually, I didn't ask you. What piece of advice you would give to yourself?
You go first.
I go first.
What would you tell your 18-year-old self? Let me turn the tables on you.
Yeah, no problem. So, what I'd probably go for D. Be more carefree. That would be my advice.
Okay.
To myself, to be honest. I think too much overthinking doesn't help us in a way. And I think probably I could have go easier through some experience in my life and don't worry that much about, am I doing the right thing, or is it the right decision or not? So I can definitely could make some decision easier, especially I think it's a really good question to ask yourself every time, when I make some decision and I start really hesitating. I always ask myself, second question, how important this decision will be in a year time? Yeah. And if I'm just, I don't know, having breakfast and can't decide what to order, which is I hate picking things from the menu. I usually just ask myself, how important is decision? What's the difference actually will make in a year time? So none. I'll just pick something. But yeah, so firstly, I think it's important to understand how important is decision before actually start even worried about this decision. So that's why my advice to myself be number D.
Okay, great. That's
what about
really
you, Nick?
Thank you for the context. Look, I think my answer is very similar to yours. I would say, don't focus on your brain so much. Don't be so cerebral, because IT people are usually quite cerebral, but we don't open the heart. And I mean, it's not our fault, because no one probably tells us that we should be doing those things. So it's up to us to go back. And I think Soren Kierkegaard said beautifully that you can only analyze your life backwards, but you have to live it forwards, right? And that's the hard part. And probably another thing is that I would tell myself to probably whatever I do out there in the world, do equal amount of work internally, because if you don't, your work in the world is probably not as effective. So working on the external aspects and internal aspects of personality is important. And also I think some of the things, maybe something that I wanted as a parting gift to the viewers. I came across my good friend Elena gave me a recommendation of this amazing rock star psychologist. Her name is Esther Perel. Highly recommended to check out Esther. And there are several prompts from Esther and several questions that you can ask yourself to start rewriting or editing the stories that you tell yourself, because those stories are very frequently limiting and self-sabotaging. And those stories prevent you from growing, and you think you're lazy and you think you're procrastinating, but really it's the stories from your childhood that do that to you. And so there's a way to rewrite those stories by asking yourself questions. And I'm just going to leave these 5 questions from Esther. There's also a link. You can screenshot them. There's also a link to which you can go to get these 5 questions. And just ask these questions of yourself and see what comes out. See what's going to happen, and see if you can start editing some of the stories that you tell yourself. because
definitely.
that's probably,
Yeah, we can even see, like, the first question, what do you say to yourself when you want something new? I guess just this question is already tell so much, about those stories. Like, are we worried that something will go wrong, or we're telling ourselves to be careful, or we're telling ourselves just go for it. I think, definitely, guys, check it out. Screenshot it and follow the link, because basically everything starts with self-awareness. And I think when we're talking about navigating your IT career during times of COVID, we hardly even talk about any IT today, guys. Have you noticed? We didn't talk about Terraform or Kubernetes, and what do you need to learn to get your new job. Because often it's actually not about that. It's about actually rewriting these stories and giving, learning from your experience, and giving yourself, this next step. And what, I'm jumping a bit, but what I also find really powerful, we were mentioning about, rewriting the stories and staying optimistic, trying to stay optimistic, trying to bring something new in our life, and different experience. And I think another really useful technique that you can use during this time is have a accountability partner. Have some friend or someone who you can regularly check in, and maybe is it just a really casual check-in, how you're going, what's going on. Maybe you want to make it more structured. I do weekly goals with my accountability partners. We just kind of write our goal for the week, what's our priority for the week, and then we just check in with each other and seeing how did you go, was it have you completed, or you change your priority. Well, just do a quick check-ins, and I think it's really helpful. Then you have this accountability partner, because you have this kind of feeling responsible in front of other person as well. It's kind of a bit of not cheating. I wouldn't say cheating now, but it's having this external control sometimes that help us to self-motivate. I found it really useful, and I actually even done it with one of my girlfriends. We both wanted to change jobs, and we just told each other, okay, so we'll make it a 3 months exercise. We both need to change jobs by whatever, a 1st of June, and we're just gonna create a separate chat, and we'll be telling each other what we've done this week to do so. Maybe just send one application, or maybe just send with one talk with one person, or just these little steps. But it was really really helpful.
Absolutely. I think study groups is an IT equivalent of that. If you're trying to learn a new skill, find other people who are learning the same skill, and just keep each other accountable and talk about those topics. It's amazing how much you can get from circles of people, and not just trying to do and trying to make an impact or trying to learn a thing just on yourself. It's really important to have a community.
100%. And guys, you've been really silent. I can see you. I can see you watching us, but I haven't seen much new questions coming up. So make sure we give it a few more minutes. If you have some final questions regarding our today's topic, please make sure to pop it in the comments. Nitin saying, hi all, I'm Nitin from Melbourne. Hope you're all safe. I'm looking for opportunities in automation testing. Nitin, just connect with me on LinkedIn, please. Yana Martis on LinkedIn, and send me a quick message regarding this, please. So guys, also I want to quickly remind you that obviously, I'm going live every Wednesday. So while you're thinking about your final questions, and next Wednesday, we're going to talk with Johan, and the topic for next Wednesday is the ways a mentor can boost your career potential in IT industry. I guess we just touched on a little bit about accountability. And Nick just mentioned about learning new skills is great, and you have some partner who's learning the same skills. So with Jochen, we're going to discuss about talk about the mentoring in the industry, and also, maybe how you can find a mentor, or maybe you want to be a mentor. So make sure to join us next Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. And also, obviously, usual stuff, make sure to subscribe to my channel, because, if I see that people engaging, it makes me feel that I'm doing something good for community, and and I want to keep going and keep bringing some speakers to my live streams. So make sure, hit this like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, so I know that you actually enjoy the conversation. If you did enjoy the conversation, okay? I'm not forcing you just to like it for the sake of liking, okay? And Nick, back to you. And I guess the final word from Nick, the final, I don't know, top tip to summarize our today's conversation.
Top tip. Look, maybe I'll give you a quote.
Okay. Give me a quote. Top quote from Nick.
Top quote. And it's from Pablo Picasso. And I think it sums up everything, really. It goes, it's about meaning of life. Of course it is. So he went, meaning of life is to find your gift. And purpose of life is to give it away. So if you can find your gift, if you can find your unique proposition, find your bliss, and then figure out who needs that and where you can give it away, you're golden. Everything's going to be perfect.
I guess we came back to this, power of reciprocity, and the power of, giving back and reaching out. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining me tonight. Also, what's the best way to connect with you?
Look, this whole speaking and interviewing thing for me is really a ploy to get more Twitter followers. So here's my Twitter handle. You guys can find me there. You can find me on LinkedIn. And thank you, Jana. I think you're doing public service with all the Wednesday conversations. I haven't missed one, I think, because what you're doing essentially is building a circle and is building a network of people who can rely on each other. And that's really valuable, especially during pandemic. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much for being with me tonight, and thank you so much for your feedback. So, guys, if you want to connect with Nick, please find him on LinkedIn or also find him on Twitter. So, Nick Da, if you want to find Nick on Twitter. So it's on the screen at the moment. I'm actually hardly using Twitter, I must admit, Nick. I do have a profile. Maybe I need to find you and follow you too. So just need to remember a password. But I'll do it tonight, especially for this occasion.
Awesome. Thank you, Jana.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone who watched us tonight, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you.
Bye.